An Akron, Ohio man has been arrested accused of soliciting the murder of U.S. military members, all in support of ISIS. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid joins us now from Washington with more on this case. Paula, thanks for being here. So what do we know?
Vlad, 25-year-old Terrence McNeil of Akron, Ohio, is charged with soliciting the murder of U.S. military personnel. According to federal prosecutors, McNeil has repeatedly expressed his support for the Islamic State on social media. They charge him with also using social media to post personally identifying information about U.S. military personnel that includes addresses, names, and even photos, and then calling for them to be murdered. In one post, he said, quote, "Kill them wherever you find them." In another social media post, he wrote, "I can't wait for another 9/11, a Boston bombing, or Sandy Hook." Now, Vlad, this is especially significant because while social media has increasingly become such an important part of terrorist organizations, the way they recruit, the way they disseminate their message, this is one of the first times an individual has been charged for using social media to commit acts of violence, to call for the commission of acts of violence in support of the Islamic State.
And Paula, so that is kind of interesting that somebody is arrested for using social media, although we know that you can't phone in threats to the White House and you can't use other means of communications to threaten people. But how significant is this, and how significant will it be going forward?
It's very significant, Vlad, because the Department of Justice is drawing the line where they believe it should be between freedom of expression and material support for terrorism. They're limited in terms of the laws that they can actually use. The laws on the books now were designed post 9/11 to combat an al-Qaeda type threat. They were very elaborate, they were very organized, they planned for months, if not years, to carry out specific kinds of attacks. So they wrote laws that would enable federal prosecutors to go after people while they were planning those attacks, doing something in furtherance of that plot before they actually committed the plot. But now ISIS is sort of more of a flash mob mentality. You can sort of franchise ISIS. They kind of pop out of nowhere. They're not elaborate planners, and they use social media a lot. And the law is just not designed to help federal prosecutors get these individuals before they commit these acts of terror. So in this case, one of the first times they're really going after someone so aggressively just for postings online.
Paula, let me ask you to put on, in addition to your reporter hat, let me ask you to put on your lawyer hat. And I guess, you mentioned that a lot of these laws were put into place after 9/11, where you recall that we saw people, for example, sending anthrax through the mail. If the law looks at the mail, the telephone as a form of communications that can be used to threaten people, can social media also be included in that? In other words, I'm just thinking of the DOJ lawyers. Is that sort of going to be their platform for why they're able to do this?
Well, DOJ lawyers would probably argue, yes, it should be considered, a similar type of medium. But people who argue for First Amendment protection say, we have to be really careful here where we draw this line. People should not be charged with federal or terrorism offenses for things that they post online. Expression, we have to be careful and protect freedom of speech. And it has been a challenge for the Department of Justice and the National Security Division to determine where to draw that line. That's why today's case is quite significant.
Paula Reid in Washington. Paula, thank you.